Shark, like, even though they're like a massive operation, even in Australia, like, you think like the shipping's still not quite there, or is it just this time of the year, you reckon?
I don't know in general because I don't order from them enough. So I'm fair enough kind of average look at it. But like as a first time real buyer, I think it's been over a week.
Yeah.
I think the thing as well is like that's normal. Apparently. Like a week or 2 week kind of delivery is like relatively normal. But I order everything from Amazon.
I was just thinking that. I was like, Amazon has ruined like everything for everyone. Like, if you don't get it the next day now, you're just like, what's
It
with
pisses me off.
what's with this service? It's shit.
Yeah, like it's terrible, but it's like actually normal, like it's average, and we're just so privileged to use Amazon every time. What do you know people who use Amazon, or is it just like us?
Like I'll be like, it actually took me a while to get onto Amazon, so
It took us a while as well.
yeah, I think
That's
people are definitely coming around, especially with I know like a lot of the things I used to buy on eBay, I'm getting on Amazon now. So like,
Yeah.
let's say like a HDMI adapter to plug to the external monitor for the laptops. I'd buy something like that. I'd buy like a little Bluetooth adapter for the
Yeah.
PC. All sorts of stuff. Like what have you bought from Amazon? Everything?
Dude, literally everything. I bought this watch from Amazon.
Oh shit! What is it?
Seiko.
That looks,
Sorry.
that looks nice.
Yeah, Orient Bambino B2.
Yeah.
Really nice. Date's fucking incorrect. But, yeah, like, dude, they do everything. Everything's good.
Yeah. I think.
Everything is good. Like, Amazon Prime is the most worth it subscription I have. So much, it's fucked.
Yeah. I like Jenny's gotten around to buying like a couple of things. They have I think a lot of the books. So I used to think like Amazon was kind of expensive, but for books they're actually just as competitive. Sometimes they're more competitive than some of the other like online stores. So
Yeah. It's the bloody, I don't know, dude. It's that delivery for me.
yeah.
Like, if I buy something, I really only buy something if I need it.
Yeah.
If I want it, then I can wait.
Yeah.
Right? I'm okay. Is what it is.
Yeah.
Like, I can, the Gymshark shit, I'm like, I want it tomorrow, but I'm like, it doesn't really make a difference.
Yeah.
Like, when I buy shit, it's usually when I need it, and I'm like, get it to me right fucking now.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually,
Sure. And it saves the time.
Actually, that's a perfect example. So, like, let's say if we've been like kind of like throwing around the idea of running a podcast, and you know we've got the microphone set up the first time, but like you know it's a bit awkward. You'll be like, oh, I could probably get, you know, you've got like your microphone attached to like the scissor arm, so that's like something you'd be able to pick up on Amazon in like 2 seconds, and they'll deliver it the next day.
Literally.
Yeah.
Literally every, and dude, just frustrating. I don't get shit straight away.
What doesn't Jeffy Bezos not have?
Fucking hell. Dude's proud. Do you know there's a petition? I think maybe I said it yesterday.
Yeah.
But there's a petition on the internet which 122,000 people have signed,
Yeah.
and that Jeff Bezos should stay in space.
Really? tell me more about that. Like, what was that about? What was the details behind?
I don't know. He's just going to space. Like the only details I know is he's going to space.
Yeah.
Right. Good on him. That's crazy.
As in the people want him to go to space, or he's nominated himself to go to space and people are petitioning?
Nah, he's already going. You know, he's actually going to space, right?
No, I didn't know that. That's
He's going to space. Like, it's an actual thing. He's going to space.
yeah.
I thought that. So that's good context. He's actually going to space. And then 122,000 people signed a petition saying he should stay there.
He should stay in space.
Yeah, we should make him stay there.
Is that like just the crypto community? Or what the
I have
Bitcoiners?
no idea. I have no idea why. Like, what the hell is wrong with the world? Bezos is like arguably one of the most goddamn. Like, he's done the most.
Yeah.
Built Amazon, for Christ's sake. How many people does he give jobs?
That's funny. Like, imagine like he's a robot. He goes up there and he just like replicates like a whole species, and then there's this whole like Earth versus Mars thing. You know?
Yeah. Imagine that shit. Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Like, I'm in the middle of, like, I grew up kind of in the middle of, like, lower class, middle class, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, really paycheck to paycheck. Like, I'm pretty sure like, what I was earning at, like, 19 or something was, like, I think pretty close to more than both my parents combined.
Yeah. Shit.
So it's like, yeah, like, they didn't have much to really save.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they're also raising 3 kids, which is...
Yeah.
If them pretty much as much as they could, which means that, you know, unfortunately they're in a bit of a tough position now, which, you know, that's as kids and my responsibility to deal with.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's kind of like, let's say if you're a typical family household, you've got your expenses around food, you got your housing costs, and then you've got like, you know, your like sending your kids to school and that sort of thing, right? Let's say you do choose to kind of like save money here and there, like with buying in bulk and like choosing no brand sort of products when you've got the choice and stuff. I feel like there isn't, even if you're super savvy, it's still not that much saved left over. It helps you get into a better position, but it's still way harder than, say, having no kids and kind of like sharing with the boys and like living off ramen noodles.
absolutely, it's a dead set grind. Like, for them, just for like people in that kind of position, it's like, we obviously have opportunity, right? So they can go get another job, they can, you know, upgrade their increase their income, they can, you know, maybe get knowledge that can, you know, leverage some of their capital. But like, it is a bit of a grind where it's, you know, they kind of got so many responsibilities, and I think we touched on it last podcast, but there's so many responsibilities that keep them so tied in, and that it's such a risk to take any of like different opportunities. Oh, like, you know, they got mortgage, you got 3 kids that you need to look after and feed and all the rest of that crap. They got bills on top of that. They got shit, like everything else, every other bill and expense you can think of. Plus, with a society and environment around them that is essentially, you know, keeping up with the Joneses. It's a goddamn grind for these people, for people in that kind of situation, because everything is telling them to spend money to kind of create that facade of doing well. Yeah. But it's actually just keeping them in a similar position and making sure they can't get out of that, well, facade, like they can't get out of the fake shit and get to the real shit. Yeah. So, it's brutal. But, you know, I had plenty when I was a kid. I had more than I deserved as a kid, I'll tell you that for sure. Yeah.
What was it like growing up? Did you have like your PlayStation games and your Game Boys and like your Nintendos and stuff? Like, what was the? I feel like
we had it at a certain age. For a while I wasn't really into, like, I don't think I got a PlayStation until my little brother.
Is it just you and your brother? So in your family? Oh,
I got a little sister as well.
You got three in your family. Younger brother, younger sister.
Little sister. Yeah, little brother's 21, 22. Turning 24. He's like a year and a half younger than me. Yeah. Adults. So at certain times of the year, we're like a year younger. Yeah. But in months, it's a year and a half. Yeah. And then my sister is 17 this year. Yeah. No, 13. I don't freaking know. Yeah. I'm pretty sure 17 next year. She's 16 at the moment.
So, like, let's say, like growing up, what was the console growing up? Do you remember the very first console you guys had?
We played on the Nintendo 64.
Oh, you had the 64? Yeah.
We played Bond. What else? We played Smash Bros.
Was that like a hustle on your half, or was it kind of like you and your brother would team up and go to your mum and dad and be like, "Hey, we need this. Like, we need this."
Nah, Dad was a bit of a game. Dad played a few games back in the day. Okay. He used to have like LAN nights, the old version of LAN nights on the 64 with, his like mum's siblings and stuff. Yeah.
So it didn't take too much convincing then.
Nah, he already had the 64, so we just played on that for a while until, the PS4 kind of really hit us. Oh, I think we got a PS3, yeah. Our first one was the PS3. Like when I'm pretty sure the PS4 was kind of like coming out soon. That's when we got the PS3.
Yeah.
When we upgraded, it was something like that. So, but when we got that, dude, that was hella fun. But we were real outdoor kids.
Yeah. Okay.
Played outdoor.
What?
We played ridiculous amounts of sport.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So you kind of had the balance of, the video games, but like you were very much kind of like active in sort of spending equal amounts of time outdoors anyway. Eh?
Yeah, it's hard for me to gauge like what age we actually started playing video games properly.
Yeah.
As in getting that kind of addicted to them.
Yeah.
My little brother loved the shit game. He still loves it, but he loved the games back then. It was crazy.
Yeah.
I can't remember. He was still in school, so it was like year 10, 11. I think that's when, like year 10, 11, when he was in year 10, 11. So I was kind of like, dude, I can't remember. It's really hard to remember that kind of, that age for some reason. But we definitely were outside a hell of a lot more as kids than inside.
Yeah.
For sure. Like I remember that.
Yeah. What were like thinking back when you're sort of younger, like what were some of the things that like you felt like you had to negotiate, like that there were kind of like more wants than rather than like needs, and like they were kind of like it took a bit of bargaining with your parents?
More like the social setting kind of stuff, like going out.
Okay.
I was a bit of a butterfly.
Yeah.
Social. So I like to go out and party, and I grew up at like a cricket club, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I was around older people, like they were like 18 when I was like 16, or like when I was 12, 13, some of my mates were already 18, stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. I hear like it's kind of like good and bad, like the whole like, sort of footy club and like cricket club, you kind of have that social thing, but then there's also like this whole status and like kind of relation, like sort of like kind of like the pressures and kind of like because your son's kind of gone to like goes to the same cricket club as us or the same footy club, we'll sort of scratch each other's back and kind of help each other out. So it's kind of like you've got that sort of social support system. At least that's kind of what like I've heard a little bit. Like have you sort of experienced any of that? Or
so yeah, social support system is maybe an interesting word.
Yeah,
it's kind of how deep you are kind of in the world.
Yeah.
I guess it's like a weird kind of way to describe it, but there are different to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like
if you're just around and whatnot, then it's the social aspect, but as you get deeper and deeper, I believe it gets just a touch toxic. Where it's competing against each other, egos are high. But yeah, it's all right. It was a good place to grow up because it allowed me to mature relatively quickly.
Yeah.
Taught me lessons, taught me what I didn't want to be, which, that's an important lesson because trying to work out what you want to be, obviously you need to work out what you don't want to be first.
Yeah.
So it's not easy, but there are definitely pros and there are definitely cons to that kind of setting.
Yeah.
But
actually on that kind of like topic, like kind of knowing what you like and what you don't like, do you remember sort of like growing up, was there like were there things that you had to go to that you like your parents kind of made you sort of go to that you didn't like sort of enjoy, or like you're kind of forced? Like was it like church, or like there was the sports getting a bit much, or
I've been in a church one time.
Yeah.
And I didn't last in there.
Yeah.
I had to leave. Wasn't allowed in there. I'm too loud and boisterous and weird. We didn't get raised with any religion. My parents,
they
didn't religion. We just didn't really have any exposure to it.
Yeah.
We got mates who are very religious, so my views are, I don't have any views on it. It's just not something I was ever exposed to as a kid. So but as when it goes to like, I was pretty much allowed to do a lot of things, and anything I didn't want to do, I didn't really have to do it, but certain things that you just have a responsibility to go to, like a lot of the family events, and when you're growing up at 16, 17, 18, like I want to go out with my friends, I don't want to go to goddamn freaking some goddamn park and like 5-year-olds. But as a family member, it's what's necessary. So you got to kind of breed that culture.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. Like, it sounds, and I think it was quite healthy, like your upbringing, in the sense that you had the sports and you kind of balanced it with, sort of time with the video games and stuff. I think like from like an Asian like household, growing up was like, hey, we're working really hard. You need to get your education right, otherwise you're gonna end up like, like the dudes, like the analogy Vietnamese people use is like, you're gonna end up as a garbage truck man, like, and I don't know why, why that's a thing, but like it just kept getting repeated.
Dude, they get paid, man.
And yeah, that's what I'm like.
They get paid proper.
Jokes on my parents and the Vietnamese community, dude. Like, that's where the big bucks are.
They're missing out.
But like sort of growing up for us, I've got 2 older sisters and a younger brother, and for us it was, stay home, your reward is video games, but like you have to share a PlayStation between like you and your brothers and your sisters, and like we're gonna buy the pirated PlayStation so that we can buy the copied games, so that like it's a one-time cost, you know what I mean? So yes, we're gonna pay a bit extra, but you're gonna have 30 games, so you're not gonna bug us every week to pay $100 for the latest title.
No, that's logical.
And then the negotiating came with like you have to go to like tutoring. So like a lot of Asians are forced like at a younger age to do like, I don't know if it's so much the case now, but growing up it was very common for me to, and like sort of people my age to go to tutoring. So like you'd have extra English classes or like extra maths classes. And that was on top of like school, right? So after school you'd go to like some weirdo's house, and like you'd come into his house, and like you got a table, you bring out your books, and like they go through it. I met some weird bloody like tutors,
some weird people who probably shouldn't be tutors.
Yeah. But
right, that's crazy.
Didn't work out so smart. Didn't work out so great for me. Not that smart.
What did they you hear that stigma of like, without being fucking stereotypical, of like, Asian parents want you to become a doctor and all that kind of crap.
Yeah.
Like, did you push a certain kind of industry on you?
I think like maybe for my older siblings, so like they both did pretty well. So one, I think they started off with like scholarships in school. So like they were trying to get you get to about 14 or 15, and then that's when you potentially like get into like year 9 scholarships in like the public or the grammar school. So one of my sisters went to, I think it was like Mac Rob, and then the other sister got into like a grammar school, can't remember which one, and they end up doing like optometry and law, right? So both pretty good. So I think once it got to me, they were just like, oh yeah, like he's gonna be okay. But by the time I got to 8th or 9th grade and the grades were kind of like, C minus, B plus, I think they kind of realized like, doctors.
Shit, this ain't for you.
Yeah, I for my sisters it was very much like, hey, you're getting like A's. Let's try to get you like higher so you can become a doctor and a lawyer. Yeah. For me, it was more like, doctors don't get C minuses and B pluses, like even at this age, Yeah,
I think that's like one thing we don't give maybe enough credit, like for parents, is especially like when they're raising like the firstborns, dude, they're just trying to work out what the fuck's going on.
Yeah.
Like I feel as a 24-year-old, you feel as a 30-year-old, you got a little bit more experience on me, but dude, you fight every day just to find out what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
Like everyone's struggling and having the responsibilities of a kid. Like I'm pretty sure my dad was similar to your age when he had me.
Yeah.
It's
Absolutely. That's crazy.
I'm like, I think he was like 30, yeah, early 30s or something. So I'm like,
Yeah.
mate, dude, your job is pass on what wisdom you have and keep me alive. I think you did a pretty damn well job. So, but yeah, like you went to uni, right?
Yeah, I had I studied entrepreneurship, so like it was a new degree.
Studied entrepreneurship at uni.
Yeah,
Oh my days.
it sounds silly talking about it now, and like I feel like I've heard I can't think of who exactly, but there's been a few people who can't. I think Gary V. Yeah, Gary V's got a very strong stance on entrepreneurship, and he goes, you know. Look, by the time you finish your entrepreneurship degree, I've had 4 years of real world experience on top of you. So like, you've got 4 years to catch up, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I did business, majoring in entrepreneurship, but it was very fluffy sort of degree, to be honest.
Macro kind of crap.
Yeah, very, very sort of high level. Like it's talking about how to get funding for angel investing. It's like, mate, you haven't earned the right to play in sort of small business world, let alone like try to get funding for. I mean, if you're really bright and like you're like a Mark Zuckerberg growing up, you might be able to get funding in like, you know, straight out of uni, but I feel like you don't have those kind of opportunities here really. not in business school anyway.
Yeah, no, I always heard uni was for network. Well, I always heard smart people say uni's for networking.
Yeah.
Not for like and building a relationship. It's not for actually learning. Like learning's done in the real world and done on your own self-improvement education kind of journey.
Yeah, very, very much so. I think like if you come across like other people who kind of really like, if you come across like a Steve Wozniak or like a Steve Jobs like equivalent in one of your classes, you might sort of network with them and try to build something on the side while you're finishing uni. But half the projects and assignments and like things they get you to do at uni is very it teaches you to research, it teaches you to write, it teaches you to be critical in your thinking, but it doesn't teach you to take risk. It doesn't teach you to use your own resources and actually try to bring a product to market, if that makes sense. You don't get any of those opportunities, not at our universities.
That's wild. I think when Mum wanted me to go to uni, because I was actually relatively like decent student, wasn't stupid, but I was lucky kind of. Well, I found out about Headstart, and I found out I don't know who I found out about why, but then I realized looking at kind of like uni and what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, and I realized I just didn't have any freaking idea. I was like, the thing that kind of really draws me in. But I still had plans to go at like 15, 16, because that's what you do, right? And you go, I'll work it out. Yeah. And I don't know. I'm pretty sure that's around the same age as I met Dylan. Dylan was like, you just don't really have to, like, just you don't have to go. Just think about it. And then I thought about it more, and I was like, shit, uni doesn't make sense to me. Yeah. So I got really, really lucky with that, because I had some support when most people don't at that kind of age. But I wanted me to go really bad because I was a relatively smart kid. Dad was in tech, so dad's been in trade, works on a golf course all his life. And so, they kind of wanted the best, but I didn't really want to go to uni. So it was like me kind of, obviously getting lucky because I didn't incur the Headstart, and I'm kind of ahead of when it comes to that with a lot of people. So I'm really, really lucky. But I then made the decision consciously to like not go through the exam period and shit like that, to not put the stress on myself and just use that time to work. Yeah. Like VCAL in year 12. Just a pretty big decision, because like people, that was the first VCAL at that school, and it was like kind of like, I don't know if you have like kind of that you understand the notion of like, or the connotation of what a VCAL student is.
It's I suppose it's kind of like it's like pathways into it's kind of like more practical hands-on stuff, but like it's a kind of like a pathway into getting like qualified, right? Like is it
Yeah, similar. It's kind of like the step before like TAFE and shit like that.
yeah
And all I wanted, like mum wanted me to get the year 12 pass because she was like, get the year 12 pass. So I found out a way. I was either going to go to another school to get a year 12 pass, but they ended up offering it my last year there of like, you just do this VCAL team.
yeah
And you get your year 12 pass, you don't have to sit exams, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, that'll do. I pretty much worked my ass off at Nando's and at I did some cleaning jobs and started learning with it and all that kind of stuff at that.
So was that the deciding factor, like learning about the hex fees and kind of weighing up? Do you remember sort of going through that?
Hex was kind of like a byproduct, a luck byproduct of that I didn't have to incur after a decision of like not really understanding what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Like everyone had just, I don't know, I just remember this really clearly. It's like everyone was just immediately on that path. They didn't even question it of going to uni.
Yeah.
Like they didn't question it one time.
Did a lot of your friends go to uni like during that time?
Yeah, all my friends from there went to uni.
Okay.
Pretty much.
Was there ever kind of like
my close friends went?
Was there ever kind of like sort of like curiosity in your mind as to like if you'd be missing out or anything like that? Like if you'd kind of like not like going a different path, I suppose, to your friends?
That was a weird bit. It was never a missing out feeling.
Yeah.
Not in that, not want to go to uni. Like it never felt like I was missing out because I just didn't. Like it just wasn't on that path. I just didn't get it. I was confused, but it never felt like I was like being left behind, if that makes sense. Because I'd also kind of removed myself from my friends just a little bit because I was going really, really hard on the knowledge and saving a hell of a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I was like, it was like a perfect combination of events kind of led me to just be able to separate myself and focus in on investing in personal development.
I think the cards like fell quite well for you in a sense that you had sort of discipline, or you had like an alternative path like that was somewhat like clear to you, right? A lot of people who decide not to go to uni, they go, all right, well, I guess I'm gonna have to find work now, and it's kind of like I'm gonna just throw myself into work, and it's usually hospitality, bartending, like customer service role, call center role, whatever. And that's not necessarily bad, but it's not really like the educational alternative like path either. That's kind of like self-education. So kind of interesting.
No, I think it comes down to, obviously I had a hell of a lot of help and there was a lot of luck involved, but it was just like a touch earlier of a decision.
Yeah,
that makes sense. So like kind of the year of year 12, or it wasn't the year after year 12 I didn't want to go to uni. It was like kind of like that, like year 11 and year 10 kind of phase where I was like, I don't get uni, I don't want to do that. If I want it, I was really realistic with myself. I was like, if this is not the right thing and I do want to go to uni, I can just go as an over. I can just go older.
Yeah. I think
really realistic with myself in that aspect where I didn't hold it to myself. I was just like, it is what it is. And I guess that's kind of my personality, of more jump in and do something and kind of think about the consequences a little bit later.
Yeah, self-awareness is what comes to mind, and like I think it's so important to know and not feel sort of the sort of pressure from other people, like the expectations of where you want to go, what your goals are, and what actions you're going to take to reach those goals. So for myself, when I was in uni, I felt the pressure of completing uni, even though I'd had a couple years to see that it's probably not going to, like at least halfway through, I realized that this course is not going to do anything for me. So I kind of like, all I had for me going for me was, hey, at the end of this, I'm going to get a certificate or qualification, which I hope an employee is going to recognize. And that's what I had, right? But then on the other side of it, I would have thought like someone who hasn't gone to uni, especially if there's the pressures from your parents' expectations wanting you to go to uni, that can sort of amount to like this sort of conflict, right? Because on one hand, uni's not for you, but your parents' expectations for you to complete uni. And I've heard this like with friends where, like maybe their their older siblings haven't completed uni. So there's this expectation of like, hey, you're the youngest one, you're the one to make our family proud, sort of thing. Like, I think it's a very interesting dynamic. So there's that side, there's the kind of figure it out yourself, and then there's the people who've done uni like myself and gone, hey, I've wasted 4 years and I've got $30,000 worth or $40,000 worth of debt. It's crazy.
Dude, the roughly, like, I really want to preface, because I feel like people are going to hear this be like, oh my god, he's either made really good decisions or blah, blah, blah. Like, it was a lot of fucking luck.
Yeah.
Lot of luck, man. Like, a lot of dominoes fell perfectly for me. Like, getting VCAL at that school that's never accepted it before.
Yeah.
Like, it was the very first year I was able to take it. To be able to stay in the same school, stay in the same environment, work in the same place, and then meet someone who was saying, like, you don't have to listen to the pressures of everything else, like, and the opinions of other people. Like, that's so much luck that it's really, really hard to argue that, it was a decision on my behalf. Like, I don't think that at all. Like, I know it was luck, but shit, I ain't going to give it back. I'm going to take the luck and I'm going to build upon it as much as I can, so pay it forward as much as I can. But yeah.
Do you think if you didn't sort of go down like the sort of the path of like self-development and sort of seeing like the context of why people go to uni and like the bigger picture and alternatives, do you feel like you'd have a bit more sort of like self-doubt into, like, you know what I mean? Like, as in, like, what path or what direction you're taking? Because it's quite normal for an 18, 19, 20, 21, 22-year-old to feel like, I need to be somewhere, but I don't know where that is. Do you know that, like, that sort of feeling? I hear that quite often.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I don't know about you, but, I sometimes I still get that these days.
Yeah.
I'm pretty much just working for myself, so it's still... You get that kind of angst or that kind of anxiety of like, what should I be doing, and why don't I know what I should be doing?
Yeah.
It's like the weirdest, unanswerable question of all time.
A lot of that is just from. A lot of that is not your own voice though. I feel like it's kind of the pressure of usually a family member, a friend, or like someone who's
social media
or someone who seems like they've got it all figured out, or like, they've always known what they wanted to do, and like they're doing what they set out to do. Yeah. And
I think certain people like that, if they are incredibly lucky and just, which is what it is, luck, if they are incredibly lucky and they work out what they want to do really, really young, they will eventually realize how lucky they are to be able to come across that at such a young age.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like a more realistic kind of mentality at that age is like more like a Kaizen philosophy of like continued pursuit of progression. Yeah. Like just keep ticking the reps over. Like one thing we learned around that age is like, try and improve like 1% a day.
Yeah.
Just improve 1% a day, and slowly you're going to start figuring out who you are, what you want to do. Just by that small kind of conscious and intentional ability of progressing.
Yeah. I think that builds really well on what you said in the last podcast around, start with what you do enjoy, what you like, and just try to get 1% better at that thing that you like, whether it's a hobby, it's, it's education, fitness, relationships, whatever it is. Just try to find out if I was going to treat this like a video game, and I was going to get to the next level, what's something I can do to become 1% better every day, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And just so that people understand, like 1% a day, like that's 365% a year. If you put that into kind of an investing, like we're from an investing and trading kind of world, that means you're the best ever. Pretty much.
And
pretty
And you're compounding, so like, you know, you've got the 1% on the 1%.
You're compounding on that, yeah.
Yeah,
you're compounding on that as well, which is important. Like,
yeah,
man, it's essentially what you do by having that kind of mentally is increasing the probability of success, increasing the probability of you finding yourself, and it kind of allows you to, I don't know, maybe relax a little bit. Because you're like, all right, if I'm increasing my probabilities of success, I pretty much know it's, I hear really, really smart people talk about, you know, that called visualization thing. It wasn't a question of whether they were going to be successful. It's just a question of like when.
Yeah.
Because they were so in tune and so kind of thinking long-term and progression mindset that it was going to happen. It just, if you keep ticking the right boxes, eventually it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But it's just when. So kind of pretty much how we're living at the moment. Like,
I think like Naval says humans are really good at getting really good at one thing. So if you put your focus on just one thing, your mind will figure out a way to get there. Whereas like if you have too many conflicting priorities, that's when you know what I mean? Like it takes longer to get to where you want to go. So
yeah, absolutely. It's people just need to. Can I go back just a touch?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Hear more. Like you went to uni and did like business, and I know didn't you open a cafe and stuff?
So it was a grocery store. So like it sold homewares and it sold groceries. So it was almost like a bricks and mortar rented out space, which sold products. Yeah.
Right. Tell us like a little bit more about that experience. Like what age were you when you opened it?
Yeah. So I was 23. So 22,
That's my
20,
age.
yeah, 22, 23.
God damn, boy.
So this was the year after I completed my uni degree. So after doing uni, finishing at like 2022, I tried to apply for work for like 6 months, and I didn't get any of the graduate roles that I was trying to apply for. And at the same time, the opportunity sort of came up, and my folks had actually come up to me and said, "Hey, look, there's a business broker who's kind of got this opportunity about which involves selling groceries and selling homewares. Is this something you're interested in?" And being like really naive at like 23, I thought, hey, this is what I've been waiting for. You know, I'm going to be an entrepreneur now. You know, if I start my own business, but I didn't really understand what that entailed. And I think I was smart enough to know that like, hey, this isn't exactly where my passions are, but it might teach me valuable business skills, right? So I found myself giving it a go and looking at the numbers and going, all right, the guys, because the first thing my parents said to me was like, hey, this business turns over $5,000 a week. And when you hear $5,000 a week, like, what do you think? Does that sound like a lot or little?
Like it's good cash flow. I mean, cash flow is a problem I got at the moment. So cash flow, $5,000 a week cash flow is not bad. That's
what I thought, right? 22. So
take it.
So like this kind of foreshadows a little bit, because it I don't know if I kind of like you can hear it in my voice, but there's a but, you know, like that's coming.
Oh really? Yeah. No, never heard it before.
Yeah.
But I think it's like when you're 22 and 23 and that kind of normal 22, 23 year old, obviously $5,000 is not a lot of money a week. Like it's not. But at that kind of age, relative to what the normal people are earning,
yeah.
Dude,
but even then, so like maths, I wasn't like, you know, like top of my grade for maths, but I was average, like a bit above average, right? So I kind of knew roughly how to sort of figure out whether the numbers made sense and if the business made sense. So quick maths of, you know, 50 weeks in a year, $5,000 a week, roughly 250,000. So let's say the revenue was going to be between $250,000 and $300,000. I'd have to work backwards and go, all right, from that revenue, what is the margin on those products? So what's in accounting known as like cost of goods sold. So once you minus that, that's your gross revenue. So like that's your revenue after you've paid for your actual products. And then you need to subtract your expenses. So like the main expenses when you're running that kind of business where you're selling homewares off a shelf, or you're selling sort of groceries and snacks and sort of stuff that you'd find in like a small supermarket sort of, right, is you've got rent, you've got wages, you've got council rates, you've got electricity, water, and just like business licensing stuff, right? So the way I worked backwards was it was 50% profit margin on a lot of the goods. So from the $250,000 or $300,000, and I'll have to show you like a cash flow statement or like a bank statement to show you kind of like the figures that work backwards. But pretty much the biggest cost and the reason why the business wasn't that profitable was rent in that area was $5,000 a month. So $60,000 a year was going straight up. It was going to the landlord just to use the space. So then there was around another $40,000 in wages. So that's two part-time employees. So you're looking at like just between those two, that's $100,000, and electricity and all the other expenses. It ended up being around like $40,000 net at the end of it. So,
I mean, it makes sense. Like that's understandable. Like that's what you assume, but it's fuck. The way they sell that shit at the start, it's like if you don't understand the actual business math, and I feel like to a younger audience, especially you doing that and stuff in uni, and people maybe doing it now with like, oh, business is like easy and all that kind of stuff. Like, what is it, 90% of startups, 99% of startups fail or something ridiculous?
Yeah, one in I think 5 businesses fail. Oh no, sorry, 4 in 5 businesses fail in. 4 in 5 businesses. I know. 1 in 5 businesses fail within 5 years, and then I think it's like 9 out of 10 businesses fail within 10 years. So like only 1 in 10 businesses make it beyond 10 years.
And if you're going into such a like
competitive and like
brick and mortar is relatively capped as it is in comparison to like pretty much what we invest in.
Yeah.
Being growth tech stock. So it's like now that we understand that kind of comparison when it comes to fundamental business, would you still take that bet these days with your new business knowledge?
No, not knowing what I know now, I definitely think like I'm happy to chalk that up to a failure. And like at the time, I was probably more. I was kind of like half on the fence around like hey, I needed to do that. I was going to learn from it. It was important. But as I've gotten older, I've kind of like, without like being able to look back on it without the emotional like ties to it, and like how much like that went into it, right? All the stress and everything that went into it. I'm happy to chalk that up as a failure, which I learned from, but it wouldn't be something I would do it again if given like knowing what I know now. Like if I could go back and give advice to myself at the time, I'd say not to do it. So at the time, like, to get through it, I was telling myself, hey, it was a good thing, but knowing what I know now, I wouldn't, definitely. biggest
takeaway or biggest lesson?
Probably the biggest thing is it's like, if I were to sort of give like sort of a tip or sort of like like advice to someone who is quite young and they're looking to, for example, start up a barber shop or like they're looking to open up their own cafe, and like these are like pretty common aspirations for a young 20-something-year-old, right? I'd say make sure like you're sort of doing something that you're you're definitely passionate about, and you're not sort of worried about the money. Because if I had loved like sort of doing groceries and homewares and sort of being around that sort of fast retail moving environment, then maybe it would have been different, and maybe the $40,000 would have been fine. But there's quicker ways to make money, and I think it's good to have aspirations. So the piece of advice is it's good to have big aspirations, big goals, and to work towards them, but treat it kind of like a marathon. So start small, get a taste for it, figure out what assumptions you've made, and give yourself enough time to figure out whether it is something you're actually passionate about. Because how often do you think you're passionate about something, and a year in or 2 years in, you kind of go, oh, I was passionate at the time, but it's not for me anymore, And
yeah, absolutely.
And this is like this relates to gaming, this relates to fads, this relates to fashion sense, and
yeah, everything.
Yeah.
That's a really, really cool message, because I guarantee you there's people, youngins coming out of uni, or starting uni, and they've got similar kind of aspirations, and then we're going to get similar opportunities by brokers. And I think kind of hearing your story and knowing a few people with similar kind of stories, it's understand everything you're getting into. Like really, really understand the flip side, understand the knowledge as well. And if you're doing it for money, I'd say it's probably not going to work, just like Marky said, like passion is. But if you are doing it for money, there's higher probability and much better ways to make money than fucking first opportunity that comes around.
Yeah, and that's not to say not to dream big. I think you can be resourceful. You can definitely be resourceful and find ways to see what it would be like to run a big operation. So like, let's say if you're a barber, right? Try to treat it like not a hobby, but like a business, and start cutting hair for friends, and set up something from home or from your garage. And then the same thing with the coffee, right? Maybe you start making coffee every single day and try to see what it feels like to put yourself, in those shoes for a little while. Because I think most people go from 0 to 100 and they don't sort of get a sense of what it's like. It's like signing up to a full marathon, a full 40Ks, without trying to do like the 2Ks, the 5Ks, the 10Ks, to see what that feels like first.
Yeah. Like when you've been for a walk, I'm just going to run a marathon.
Yeah. Yeah, just like on the compound,
Yeah. No, that's I think there's a book by Seth Godin called The Dip.
Yeah. I've heard of it.
Your why or your passion will get you through that dip, and essentially the principle is when things get really, really tough, it's like a cliff, right? When things get really, 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 really tough, and you have to go down that cliff, the dip, and you're continually down that kind of downward spiral of the hard times of business, where rent gets difficult, when rent gets difficult to pay, there's no many customers coming in. If you're not passionate, you don't have your why surrounding what you're doing, it's going to be incredibly difficult to come through the other side of that and back up to the top of the cliff. So I think like you obviously had times when you were on that down kind of slope in that business. Like what got you, obviously, the business, like you said, it was a learned failure, but like what kind of got you through some of the hard times, like when you were doing that?
Yeah, I think it was it was tough. It did feel kind of like I was a bit trapped, because there's with the bigger the commitment, the more difficult it is to cut ties with that commitment. So similar in relationships. Once you have kids, for example, more difficult, right? Once you engage, more difficult. If you're like casually dating, kind of easy, right? Similar sort of thing when it comes to business, similar sort of thing when it comes to property, like purchasing property, for example, versus like shares and so on. I think with the difficult time, I kind of just focused on what I can sort of do next, instead of like just each day, rather than kind of like, what's the end goal. So I did what I could in terms of advertising the business for sale, and then pretty much I did what I could in terms of like promoting the business for sale, but I didn't have expectations, because there wasn't an easy way out. And there were times where I thought, fuck, like if this doesn't work out within the next 2 years, I'm just going to declare bankruptcy and like just and just kind of tell the landlord to stick it. Because the biggest in that situation, the biggest trap, right, is like, let's say if you're in my situation and you kind of want to like, shake your hands and go like, all right, I'm done with this business, I'm out. Yeah. You have signed the contract with the landlord saying you're going to be renting out that space for the next 5 years. So you have a commitment of, what did I say? 60,000 a year. You've got a commitment of $300,000 to that landlord over the next 5 years. The only way you get out of that is if somebody else is willing to continue that contract and comes in, right? So I kind of just told myself, anything that kind of all bad things come to an end. And I feel like I repeated that like to myself constantly during the dark times. And I think that's kind of true. Like, as humans, we're pretty resilient, and like whenever you kind of think back to like the worst thing that's ever happened to you, and you think like, shit, like this isn't going to get better, it always gets better. You just have to kind of, be hopeful that things are going to pass, and have that sort of strength. Yeah.
That's a beautiful message. Pain is temporary, right? But it's hard to understand it's temporary in the moment.
In the moment, 100%, yeah.
That's crazy. That's beautiful. Yeah. Dude, how many years did you go in there for?
So I was there for 3.5 years. I thought it was going to be longer, but yeah, 3.5 years. So I got out at like 2025. But at 20, when you go into a business at 22, 23, like 3 years feels like a long time. 3 years feels like a really long time. Yeah.
That's a goddamn grind. Goddamn grind. Like that trapped feeling.
Yeah.
It's terrifying, man. And I feel like a lot of people have that in their own kind of way, where like the minute they start incurring extra responsibilities, whether it's mortgage or it's a car loan, or if it's, that nice fancy phone or extra clothes, all those liabilities, they start getting themselves trapped.
Yeah.
And then progressing their situation, once you've got all that weight on your shoulders, it feels like pushing a rock uphill.
Yeah.
You can get all the way up the top. You're just continuously trying to push it uphill.
Yeah, very much so. I think that's like a perfect that's a perfect comparison. I think being in that situation did very much feel like having like all this sort of like credit card debt. Like, I imagine the feelings are the same, but in those situations you can either focus on how bad the situation is, or you can create a plan and then just action or start on that plan each day and sort of make small steps. And that's how you would that's how you would tackle a big debt, when you'd kind of just pay off what you can and let that sort of snowball. But having a plan is better than having zero plan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I guess I'm so freaking lucky when it comes to that, because I was lucky to have no debt and only kind of feel that feeling in really, really specific kind of moments, which, bubbles and all that kind of crap. And being at a job where you have minimal kind of freedom and that kind of stuff, but it's no way near comparison. So like, you're actually really teaching me something here, because I can only vicariously kind of live and feel that.
Yeah.
So the grind, go.
I was going to say, so we kind of talked about this. So we've gone from talking about not going to uni and being okay with that, and then, you know, on the other end of it, committing to this huge business venture, which kind of like you kind of trap yourself into. How do you bridge that gap? So like you've got, let's say you're speaking to someone who's finishing school, so they're 18 or 19, and they know that uni's not for them. They've started working a part-time job, which is kind of good at that age. What advice or what kind of things do you think is worth investing your time into, while you're working that part-time job, so you can develop yourself? What kind of things did you do, and what other things do you think you could have done? Like any additional things you think you could have done?
It was purely knowledge, really. Like my kind of, so, you know, that decision to not go to uni and just to work led into me working a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
So doing 70-hour weeks, including study at home, you know, 100-hour weeks quite regularly. Because, you know, we were working on a time-based opportunity back then, being crypto in 2016, 2017. So I tried to cram.
Were you working 90 or 100 hours a week, like during those periods?
So you would, yeah, we pretty much worked like as many hours as we could at Nando's.
Yeah.
As many as we could. Like for me, it was more of a shorter window because I didn't understand the opportunity as long.
Yeah.
But for a really good while, and then it led into working. I can't name the place because people know you can't name the place because of shit. But I worked at a different place, working as many hours as possible.
Yeah.
And then the 100 you would make up in like study for at home as well.
Yeah.
So you would actually working like 2 full-time jobs, working overtime at both of them. One of them is literally just learning and knowledge and accumulating consumption. And one of them is, you know, our kind of working on a time-based opportunity of getting as much capital to put into the markets as possible.
Okay. So if I understand correctly, you picked up more shifts, so you were getting more like money like coming in from like your regular job.
Yeah.
But then you're also realizing that's sort of like an ends to a means, but you're sort of spending any additional time you had trying to upskill or like try to learn information. And when you say knowledge, you're talking about like learning the financial markets, you're learning the stock market, you're learning trading, you're learning crypto, or that sort of thing, or like
that stuff, as well as personal development. So I think like the journey to investing and trading comes post being able to work out like who you are, dealing with your ego, understanding a few basic kind of like business rules and fundamentals, and a lot of just, you know, things like different little things that are so second natures to it now, like the 80-20 principle, Pareto's principle, like all those kind of different things. You have to learn all of them before you really understand kind of how to look at a company the correct way.
Yeah.
As a lot of the times if you're looking to invest in really anything, and we were speaking about it before, there's a lot of sunk cost bias when you look at, I mean, anything that you believe you're going to put your money into, and if you don't have the actual knowledge and the systems and the technicals behind what you're looking into, then you know you can get not necessarily traps, not the correct word, but you can get like kind of or make misguided decisions.
Yeah.
Know the proper amount of information. So yeah, when I was young, it kind of, and when I say young, it was like 19. What am I now? 19, 20.
Yeah.
It all like kind of foot in, foot out, but working a hell of a lot of hours trying to get capital for the market. And then, as I said probably in the previous podcast, I was really like foot out, foot in for a fair few years. And it wasn't until like kind of after 2017 we kind of got wrecked by the old crypto markets and which is a bitch.
It was brutal.
That was brutal. Once you do that, you kind of, it puts it into perspective a little bit. Like, we know a lot of people who got hurt a hell of a lot more than I did, including yourself.
Yeah.
So it's it kind of puts a lot of things into perspective, and then you start going again and going a little bit harder and focus on the knowledge. And that was a bit all over the place. But
when you say half,
leading back to,
oh sorry, go on.
Leading back to like what a piece of advice for like a younger kind of person would be is, what I did was work really, really hard to get as much money into the markets as possible at a young age. Not because of a time-based opportunity, that was one of the factors, but if you look at compound, the much money you get, like compound works on two things. It works on time, and it also works on the percentage that you compound, percentage of interest you compound at. So the way to increase your percentage that you compound at is obviously by knowledge, because that's how you do it. And then to increase, your time, you have to get as much money in as quickly as possible. So that's where we looked at it first started that way. But what I would probably also give people advice to do is kind of just experiment with odd little passions. Like, find what you want to do in the world, because that's kind of like what I had to do after 2017 is kind of find what I enjoy, find what I want to do, find out what I want to do with the rest of my life. And people put the pressure on you to make that decision when you're in school and go to uni and then do a certain job and then want a certain lifestyle. Being realistic, you can do, if you don't tie yourself down with a hell of a lot of responsibilities early, you can do a hell of pretty much whatever you want. So kind of experiment, try and not incur too much debt while doing that. Don't go spend in everything you can and then get a goddamn credit card and go traveling. Do it. Go to places with lower costs, which arguably have better perspectives, or offer better perspective shifts. And just follow your passions and learn as much as you can about it. Be inquisitive, be curious. I think that's kind of what we touched on last time as well, but that's kind of what I'd say. What was the
No, that was beautiful. I think that was really, really well put. I think that that's really useful advice for someone sort of younger and looking, not sure how to sort of how to tackle the time thing, but also how to tackle how to approach sort of a direction for someone that of that age. Would you say, once you've done your research, do you think you would go all in with the investing in terms of so you've got this job, you're making more money now because you're putting more hours into it and you're learning the markets and you're learning self-development. Would you, maybe not necessarily advice for other people, but would you, or did you put most of your money into the market straight away, or was it kind of you had a sort of you got a taste for it and then you slowly you had to sort of see for yourself over time?
I have a relatively impulsive nature, so if I see something, I kind of have a real hard crack at it. But I would say that over time, I would say my risk tolerance is a touch higher than a few people at that age. But it certainly grew a percentage of income over time, for sure. Yeah. So when I first started, it was kind of working it out, and then kind of you have to build your confidence and kind of in the system and what's going on, and you trust in certain people that were kind of helping me at that time and were giving me the advice and whatnot. Yeah. So it builds time to get into certain things, but there was a point there that I was doing 50% of income. Yeah. For a while.
That's really good. I think the piece of advice there too, I suppose, building on that is, your actions and how aggressive you go, if that sort of thing aligns with how ambitious you are, right? If you kind of want a little bit of, you kind of want a bit more than where you are now, but you don't want to, your ambition is just a little bit higher, then you could be a bit more savvy with your money, invest a little bit, learn a little bit, work a little bit more hours, and that could still get you ahead, right? But if you want to get as much as you can in the shortest amount of time, you're going to have to make some sacrifices, and I'm sure you did that with, you know, your social, like going out with friends and sort of giving up a lot of that time, because there's only so many hours in a day and a week. So you worked more, you studied more, and you invested. So you went a bit more aggressive than most people would at your age, which is, you know, not for everyone, but like it can set you up really well.
It's a bit of a grind, like eating dollar goddamn soup cans and eating fucking 2-minute noodles for a while. Like that's ain't great. But, you know, and living in real interesting kind of accommodation just for real, for really, really cheap.
Yeah.
I wouldn't give any of it away. Like I don't regret any of it, and I would do it all again if I have to, because it's put me in the position I am today.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, I reckon, yeah, like mad respect. I reckon it's really fucking hard to see everybody sort of spending their money on, like, you know, the things that a young person enjoys, right? And you're making that kind of money, so you know you can do the same things as them, but you choose to invest in things or to go like a slightly different route, even though you're working just as hard, or if not harder than, you know, the people around you. And to be okay with kind of enjoying some small things, but also being like thinking about your future rather than just right now. So foregoing the things now for the later you.
Yeah, I think when I was young, where I messed up was when I say I was like a foot in, foot out.
Yeah.
I used to earn like a hell of a lot more. I was just working more hours, and I have that kind of social skills where I just got promoted quickly to certain things, and then I ended up getting a manager's job by default because there was no one else there to do it.
Yeah.
I got really lucky and like blessed to have that opportunity, which I learned. I was terrible at, by the way, but I learned a hell of a lot from it. So
yeah,
I'm thankful for that opportunity, which is a massive reason of probably who I am today. But I was earning, back to the point, I was earning a hell of a lot, or earning a decent amount in comparison, because everyone wasn't working, they were studying in uni and all that kind of stuff. But what I would do is I'd pretty much put the excess of what they were, like whatever they were earning, everything past that, I would kind of put into the markets, and then I would still relatively not go out as much. Like I'd probably go out once a month or something like that.
Yeah.
But go relatively a little bit harder. So I think, personally, that was where I say I was a foot in, foot out. I was probably kind of not really understanding, still very immature, I was still young, touch ego, where I still kind of gave in now and then to those social of partying and stuff like that. But I think I'd love to see kind of the results. Obviously, if I'd done as much as I probably could have back then, but I don't think it would lead me to have the perspective as I do today and be probably mature and respect what I have as much.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is like going to the gym though, right? Like you progressively work up to your heavier weights and the more aggressive workouts, whereas like if you maybe go a little bit too hard on a workout, you might sort of be discouraged to kind of come back or like continue doing it because you feel like you're sacrificing a lot. So I suppose there's kind of that kind of balance, and it just depends how aggressively you want to go. But I think at 18, 19, 20, like most people aren't really sort of thinking about investing or thinking about 5 years down the track. They're thinking about tomorrow, they're thinking about next week.
Yeah I think that kind of, I would call it like a medium term kind of outlook. It's like thinking a few years in ahead, where everyone was thinking like at the moment, where if I was a little bit smarter, I would have been thinking way long term, which is kind of how, well, this is definitely how I think now, which is like money's not really a point that I try not to think about anymore, and I'm progressively getting better at not thinking about the short-term money at all. It's just about progressing myself, and eventually it'll work itself out, the money. But
it's a really good point. The longer the horizon, the less the less what's a good way to say it, I suppose, the less the more calculated your decisions will be, I suppose, right? Like if you're thinking long term, you're thinking about value, you're not thinking about, you know, things that are going to sort of work in the short term, and you're going to get much better results in markets and in relationships, and just going after your goals in general.
I think one thing we kind of talk about in this house a lot, and talk about as a company and friends, is kind of like the soul factor. I don't think I've never heard really people touch on that. It's not really my idea, but it's something I'm just going to translate for people. Is you have to, what you're going to do in life, whatever it is, you have to do it the right way, and you can't forego like your soul and your spirit and the person you are to get those things that you think you want.
Yeah.
You have to keep your integrity and the person you are in everything you do. You have to keep your soul intact for life. Arguably one of the hardest things to do, because the world is always throwing different opportunities, different sensations, different things at you at all times. But, you know, if one thing I'm really trying to learn at the moment and really trying to articulate for people is to keep your soul and keep your integrity intact. Do everything you can to get what you want and do it in the right way.
Yeah.
I think Naval speaks about kind of win-win business kind of mentality of, you know, you can win and the person that you're in business with can also win, or you can win, your customer can win, you can get paid, your customer can get the best service. And just in every person you meet doesn't have to be, just because you get something doesn't mean the other person has to lose. Right? And so I feel like sometimes maybe in the financial world we forget that sometimes, because everything's a transaction, right? If you're buying and you're going to win, that means that person's selling and they're going to lose.
Yeah.
Sometimes people think it in that kind of black and white, where it's, you know, and this is kind of a really first forming thought, so I'd have to articulate it a little bit later for people as well, but it's more about kind of, why cannot everyone win at all times?
Yeah.
You have to be a loser, right? And does that mean sometimes you're going to sacrifice a little bit off the top? Absolutely. But would you prefer to have everything by yourself, or would you prefer for everyone to have a little bit of everything? Like, one thing we talk about all the time is, especially in this house, is there's no point in one of us being rich at the top of a mountain and all the other boys chilling at the bottom.
Yeah.
Like, we want us to be you know, the best version of ourselves, and to be as wealthy as possible, to help as many people as possible together.
Yeah.
Like there's a UFC fight, and this is kind of going a little bit off track, but if there's a UFC fighter, Rose Namajunas, right? Like, arguably one of the biggest savages in women's sport and in sport in general at the moment. Like, she punches people for living and does it really, really well.
She's a beast.
She's a beast. Constantly her message is, why can't just people be nicer in the world?
Yeah.
Just be each other. Just love people. I'm like, dude, if a person who, you know, in most people's context of what she does for a living is barbaric and savagery, can, after punching someone and then winning at a contact sport, say, why can't we just be nice to each other? Like, dude, she gets it. She gets the point.
Yeah.
What life is.
I think, yeah, honesty is a big thing, and it will get you to where you need to a lot sooner if you're able to make those, you know, whatever you do, if you're able to have integrity and be honest with yourself, with your decisions, and you know, have that sort of humility for self-awareness. And then also, you know, to your point around Rose, you can have marginal situations where, you know, it's not going to make a big difference whether you choose one or the other. But given these marginal decisions, why not choose to be kind, even though it's not going to be like a big impact, because you're kind of working up that muscle for you to automatically choose the kind option when you're given two options, right? So like perfect example, you're driving and someone cuts you off. You can either not like, or they're trying to like squeeze into like from the emergency lane or something. You can either speed up and try to like make it hard for them to come in, or you can just be kind and sort of slow down and like, you know, sort of let them in. And like, you know, on one hand you might sort of see it as like, hey, I'm letting this asshole in, yeah. But on the other hand, you can just kind of see it as like, hey, I'll be the kind person in this situation or in this negotiation. Yeah.
One way I try to like think about interaction specifically is to think of yourself in that other person's shoes as much as you can.
Yeah.
That person in when you're driving, that person in line may be having the worst day of their life.
Yeah.
They may be rushed somewhere. They may be the list of potential problems that they have going on in this world that we live in today are ridiculous. So one of them may actually be happening to that person at this time. Like, it's incredibly easy for you to pump the brakes and just let them in, and not stuff about it in comparison to beeping them when the flash is on. Like, you're just creating extra negative energy for them.
I suppose a perfect analogy would be like, so that person that's just like wronged you, right, could be, you could imagine yourself on your worst day, on your worst week, and you're that person, and now you've got the opportunity of like being in a good place, and you're kind of going to be kind to yourself in a way, right? Or so that could have been like Marky Melbourne when he was 23 running his business, feeling trapped, and he's just like, oh, I just want to fucking get in, like I hate this fucking traffic, I hate life. and now I'm like 30-year-old Mark, like, hey, I've got like positive friends, I got support, I'm gonna let this guy in, you know, like.
I think of people, I don't know if it's just my parents, but I feel like a lot of parents say this, just like, put yourself in someone else's shoes, how would they feel?
Yeah.
That's like the wisest shit I've ever heard.
Yeah. I feel like sometimes you need to slow down and actually think about that though, because it's easy to kind of like just brush over that idea, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, really, like, it's emotional intelligence, a massive part of that, of like, put yourself in someone else's shoes and see how they would feel if the way you spoke, the way you kind of reacted. Like, I feel like that's half the problem with jobs.
Yeah.
Everyone goes there with their connotation or the point of being pissed off all day. Like, I don't want to be here. What if everyone was just fucking happy? Nah, I'm good. Like, would the place not be considerably better?
Yeah.
Would you not enjoy yourself a touch more? But, you know, for a long time and for the majority, that's going to be kind of the difference, right? So you're going to look weird if you always have that energy. Now, we don't have it here. We don't look weird because we're always happy. We're always pumping each other up. If anyone new comes to our house, we are over the top in positive energy. And it is on purpose, because we want that person to if they were having a shit day, they don't leave in a shit day.
Yeah.
They're having a great day. So for us, we're in our little bubble where we just continue to pump each other up all the time. We'll try to as best we can. So, but like, the difference is, say in a workplace, it takes one person to start it, and usually they get shut down, but it takes that one person to keep going and keep going and keep going and start infecting the rest of the workplace with that positive energy.
Yeah.
And there's no reason, I don't care if you're fucking sweeping the floors, there's no reason you can't do that.
Yeah.
Like, you can be the level employee, just start treating people how you want to be treated.
Yeah. It's definitely a lot easier going into a workplace or like a friendship circle where everyone sort of, you know, has only nice things to say about each other, and like they sort of choose to find the positives, like in like a challenging, you know, task or situation, or even it might just be like difficult, like it might be like pickpacking or something, and like might be real laborious, but you can still see the positives in things, right? It's and it goes a long way.
Yeah, dude, if you're pickpacking, like, there's so many fucking things I just didn't want to do. Like,
Yeah.
What I used to do was similar to like, not similar to pickpacking, but I used to like pretty much mundane task. You have to pick up like boxes and move it all the time, right? Dude, positive energy comes from you. There ain't no one quicker than me. It doesn't exist. Imagine there's one dude, he's crazy. But like, you know, you give your best, and then that kind of infects other people. It breeds on to other people, you know, and it's something I'm learning over time. Sometimes it catches me. Sometimes I'm, especially in the workplace, because it's hard. You get overstressed, you get tired, you become negative, blah, blah, blah. But sometimes, try your best to be that leader, and try your best to positive energy. And shit, man, 50% of the world does it. I reckon 100% of the world will be doing it real quick.
Yeah. You know what? Like, so I'm a bit of a warrior, so like I get anxious easy, and I've found like in workplaces when I've just started and like the work is challenging, I've found like just being nice to people and kind of forgetting my own problems for a second makes people want to help me. So you can get a better result or make your life easier by being nicer to other people. So that's I think that's important to remember too when you're having it difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you. It's not really like, maybe not scientific, but I refuse to believe that people just hate people.
Yeah.
I refuse that. Like, that just simply just doesn't make sense.
And if you're really selfish, think of it this way: like you could be having the worst day, but if you choose to try to be nice to someone, then they're going to be nice back to you. So you're going to make your day better. You know, so it's about what you want. You know? Like,
if you want to add a selfish connotation to it, that's perfect kind of analogy for. Nah, it's crazy. I don't know. Something we're trying to get better at every day. Something we're decent at, and something that I think if a lot of other people looked into or pursued, dude, the world would be a much nicer place.
I think that's a good note to finish it up. I think that was a
I reckon.
I think that was beautiful last couple of words, mate. What the fuck? I think that's gonna.
I have to leave that in too.
That's gonna have to leave the car.
It better. I think what the last thing, like I think we automatically somehow did this, and I was going to bring it up at the start, but the feedback I got is like we didn't really provide context as to who we are.
Yeah.
Previous to it, we had plans to talk about. I don't know what we had plans to talk about today.
Nah, didn't have any plans really.
Dude, I don't know if we should get better at that, but like, it was pretty. I would say went relatively well. So